All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Lucent Truth, and we are the Lucent Troupe, starting with Mr. Avidya. Welcome back.
Hey, hey everyone.
Johnny Mozzarella right below him. Say what's up to everyone, John. Johnny Mozzarella, you there? Looks like he paused. Looks like he bored. Like he's like frozen.
Oh,
Okay, we'll get back to him. All right, King 81, what's up?
and I'm in here, man, ready to get this podcast on.
And lurking behind him is Hyper King. What's his name? King. I'm sorry. Hyper King. Hyper King Magnetic.
No, it is Grandma Cookie.
Grandma cookies.
But he didn't watch the movie, so I don't even know why he's up here.
I'm back.
Okay, so we're gonna get right into it. So today we're gonna be doing. I don't know if we're gonna do a review. I don't want to do a review like how we usually do it because this is a different type of movie. I just want to have a discussion about it. And then we can kind of give our reviews at the end, like what we rate it. But I don't want to review like we break it down a plot and all that stuff like that. We'll just talk about the movie. But this was recommended by our good friend Avidya up top there. And Avidya, can you give us a little bit of a reason as to why you wanted us to watch this film?
Okay, well, back in the '90s when I was going to film school, at that time it was a lot of I considered the golden time for independent filmmakers at the time, and that was when Darren Aronofsky came out, John Sayles, '80s, '90s, Quentin Tarantino, and
When did Spike Lee come out? Was that the late 80s or early 90s?
'80s.
Late 80s, okay.
Yeah. You can still, the Hughes brothers. It was just it was golden. It was golden time, and when I was going to film school, this movie right here really struck me. I thought it, for a simple, not a lot of locations, just an idea of a story, and if you have a strong idea, it can carry a whole film. So, and it just, I think right now where we're in this PC, social warrior justice climate that we're in now, I still think it still holds up. And
Almost definitely, yeah.
Definitely needs to be viewed again in today's climate. But I thought it was a phenomenal film. Stacy title. She did some other movies that went really well, but she passed away in 2021. I think she had like MS.
Who she? Was she the director?
Yes, she was
Okay,
the director. It was written by Dan. I can't think of his last name, but I just thought it was a phenomenal film.
I think it's Dan Rosen was the guy who wrote it.
Thank you, Dan Rosen. And at the time I was dating this, I went to the theater. I think it was. You remember the Roxy downtown?
Nope.
And downtown Charleston. Downtown Charleston. It was an independent film theater called the Roxy, and we saw it there. And I just thought it was great. So and she was so inspired at the time. She used that to for the write a paper for college. But yeah, anyway.
It's interesting you said that when you have like just a really good idea, it can carry the whole film. You don't have to have a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of different locations. And it kind of
special effects.
Yeah, special effects. It kind of reminded me not so much the topic, but maybe kind of like the format of the film. There's a movie, probably one of my favorite movies of all time. It's called The Man from Earth. It kind of had a similar feel. There's basically the movie's really just a conversation, but it's so enthralling. You know what I'm saying? That it keeps you in there. It's good character acting, But with that, we're going to get started. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to watch the trailer, just so that so the audience who's watching this, if they've never seen the movie but they still want to listen to us, they kind of get a basic idea of what the movie's about. We're going to read a quick synopsis of it and maybe read some critical reviews, and we're just gonna get right into it, guys. So here is the trailer, and here we go.
File this under amazing stories, my friends.
You see, every Sunday for about a year now, we've been inviting a guest over for dinner and discussion.
What do you talk about?
Everything. Life, current events, the environment.
We're liberals. We do the right thing. So we buy animal-friendly mascara, or we stop buying grapes, but we don't do anything.
What if you kill somebody whose death makes the world a better place?
What, like murder?
If it was Hitler, I would kill him.
What we need in this country, my friends, is someone who can stand up to the liberals.
That is what the Right to Life movement is all about.
We need a return, God darn it, of the promise of the Reagan-Bush years.
Hey! Hooray for us!
Jason Alexander, Cameron Diaz, Nora Dunn, Charles Durning, Ron Eldard, Annabeth Gish, Mark Harmon, Bill Paxton, Jonathan Penner, Ron Perlman, and Courtney B. Vance.
You fellas wouldn't know a guy can get a decent meal around here, would you?
Yes.
The Last Supper.
All right, so real quick, I'm just gonna read the synopsis real quick. This is from Wikipedia. The Last Supper is a 1995 American satirical black comedy film directed by Stacy Title. It stars Cameron Diaz, Ron Eldard, Annabeth Gish, Jonathan Penner, and Courtney B. Vance as 5 liberal graduate school students who invite a string of extreme conservatives to dinner in order to murder them. The film premiered in the 1995 Toronto International Film Festival. And real quick, I'm going to scroll down. We're going to read some basic critical reviews on it. The Last Supper has a 61% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes based on 38 views. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 3 out of 4 stars, writing that although it is too long and repetitive, he appreciated its lack of partisanship. He described the film as a brave effort in a timid time, a Swiftian attempt to slap us all in the face and get us to admit that our own freedoms depend precisely on those of our neighbors, our opponents, and yes, our enemies. M.V. Moorhead of the Phoenix New Times opined that the film's level of satiric discourse couldn't have been more genuinely provocative. Janet Maslin, reviewing the film in the New York Times, was far more critical of the storyline, criticizing it for its lumbering obviousness and sophomoric political debate, and conventional and unsurprising plot. In a review for the Washington Post, Rita Kempley described it as sour, repetitive, fair, and glib, morally muddy, overly schematic. Now, I actually agree with a little bit of some of those critiques, but I think whatever little flaws are in the movie, I think is overshadowed by, I think, how good the movie actually is.
Topic.
Yeah, and just how well crafted the movie actually is. But let's see. This is the cast. We'll keep the cast up for right now, just so we can have it as a reference. As we're talking about the different characters. And one thing I want to point out, just to kind of get it started, is I didn't notice it at first, but as the movie went along, I realized that most of the people who were sitting at the table, the liberals, the graduate students, all had names related to the apostles, and that they sort of walked in the same. It's almost like the apostles were used to craft the characters, like as a basis to craft the characters, because this character right here, Polly, she was like the Apostle Paul. At first, the Apostle Paul he didn't believe in the whole Jesus stuff. He was a stout Jewish person, and no, I'm sorry, he didn't believe in all the Christian stuff. So he was a stout Jewish person, but then he had a conversion. And if you look at her character in the movie, right, at first she was against murdering people, right? She was against it. She was totally against it. But then, as the more she got to learn about the people who were there invited to jail, she became one of the most like glib ones. I'm not glib, but like giddy people about murdering these people. Whereas first she was the most against it. I thought that was hilarious. And then when you look at Cameron Diaz's character, Jude, You know, she was the one who was the first one who started saying, even though she was very gung ho in the beginning, she was the first one to kind of say, yeah, you know, let's back away from. It's kind of like she betrayed the apostles. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting how they did that. But you know, then you have Mark and you have Luke, you know, at the table too. But I thought that was pretty cool. But I'll let you guys kind of get started because there's a lot I want to say, but I'll let you guys kind of chime in. You like maybe your first impressions of it and stuff like that.
I mean, I enjoyed it. One thing I liked about, or not just this movie, but just older movies in general, because they had less to do. Like this movie was made with a $500,000 budget.
Correct.
I mean, that just goes to show you how much time and effort went into like the writing and you know, everything that really makes a movie actually a good movie, you know, which a lot of movies nowadays they lack. They don't have good screenwriting, they don't have good acting, they don't have good lines and stuff like that. But that just really shows you, like, and this was her first feature film when I looked it up. This was her first film that she did where it was a feature length. So she had very little money to work with. So she had to bring all the other things. And I forgot how good a movie like this is, because you're so used to all the special effects and all that stuff, and you forget like the essence of what an actual movie is supposed to be about. And I always enjoy those types of movies because when you can have an hour-long conversation after the movie's over, to me, I feel like the director did their job. Like when it invokes that much thought afterwards, you know, and now granted every movie is not, I guess, it's supposed to be like that, but I enjoy these movies far more than I enjoy the big budget Hollywood movies of today, which is the reason why we're having this podcast. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I do kind of agree. I did think it got a little long-winded at the end. I do kind of agree with that critics, but I still think everything put together, especially the climax when Ron Perlman's character Norman finally comes there, it really wrapped the entire story together. So I could get past that long-winded middle part where it's like it kind of reminded me like the 80s montage where everyone's just kind of doing their own thing in different scenes, and it's showing you how basically murdering all these people is affecting them differently.
Yeah.
But once Ron Perlman's character came in, it really just brought the entire movie together. So I mean, I know we're not rating this, but I think this is a solid five.
Wait, you're supposed to do. We're going to do that at the end, John. We're supposed to do that at the end. Yes, we're going to rate it, but I wanted to get away from our typical movie review shows where we go through the plot and the acting. No, this I think the film.
I don't
want to go through. I just want to talk about the film because I think
it's really, really good.
Yeah, it is good, but we're going to give our ratings at the end. One thing I wanted to point on about what you said was one thing I did like about this movie too is that it had film grain. It felt like I was watching a movie, whereas everything's so flashy and clean. It's weird to me because when I see the film grain, it looks more realistic to me. When everything's like super clear and ultra realistic, it looks fake. I don't know what that is. I don't know. Maybe some people, I guess, they call it uncanny valley. I guess I don't know, but it doesn't. Maybe it's also, I think I'm not a Gen Z person. I grew up with film. I seen grain in film first, so that's how I see movies. And then when I see something like that, it looks more realistic to me. But Gen Z, they didn't grow up with these movies. They grew up more with being, having these extremely clear HD, 4K, yeah, IMAX, whatever. So to them, that's more real. So I think it's also a perspective thing.
Yeah, it is, and I agree with you. Like I said, the new TV that I bought, it's like the 4K crystal technology. And don't get me wrong, it looks great. It looks beautiful. I love it. But you're right. There's just something about that texture, that grain. It just brings the movie together. Now, and I do think it just depends on what type of movie. With this movie, I think it works well.
Yeah.
But I can't lie. Like we were saying earlier, we were talking about Yellow Jackets. Like, there's just something about watching Yellow Jackets and that crystal clear. Everything just looks nice and pretty. But for some movies, I just, you got to have that grain. That texture. It makes you feel like you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I go back and forth. But with this type of movie, I would like it. I wouldn't want to watch this one in crystal clear. I think it would take it away from it.
Anybody else got anything? Just generally what you want to talk about? Because I have some questions.
Oh, I will say this. This director, Stacy Title, because after the movie, I had to look up some of her other work, and she actually directed the horror movie, The Bye Bye Man, which I actually enjoyed. That came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I can't remember exactly when it came out, but I really did enjoy the Bye Bye Man.
You know, I fell asleep on that one. I need to remember. I was at your house. We were watching, and I fell asleep. Yeah, I need to revisit it.
Yeah, but it was actually well done. Some of the other stuff that she's done, I've never heard of though, but I will definitely check out some of it.
Okay, all right. One of the things I like about the movie is that it kind of brought up a lot of moral quandaries, right? And I think that kind of like to Travis's point about today's environment. I think we're seeing a lot of that, but I think we're seeing a lot of moral relativism. And I'll say this. I agree with the philosophy behind moral relativism. I'm not saying that I disagree with it. I think that morality is largely relative. I think there's a few things that you could say that are universal to humans when it comes to morality, like murder and theft and stuff like that. And rape, I'll add that in there. Even though in some cultures, even with that, I think it depends on how you define that. You know what I'm saying? But I think that in this society today, where in many ways we've lost religion, we've lost certain moral compasses that we at one time possess. It's hard to differentiate between who has the more morally right or just stance. And I think this movie depicts that well, because as I was watching, I was like, you know what? These conservatives are going a little too far for me. But some of the stuff they're saying is kind of true. And then when you hear liberals, I see what you're saying. But some of that stuff, you go too far. You know what I'm saying? And I think this movie perfectly shows that. And I think Ron Perlman at the end, no matter what you think of him, I think sort of portrayed the guy who kind of took the middle road, and I think he sort of in many ways shamed them, because he was they judged him in one way, and in some ways he was kind of a bastard, but in other ways he was more fair and just than the so-called liberals. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so I thought that was an interesting twist. It's like like he said, if you go too far to the extreme on either side, is when you start having problems. But that being said, the one character, Zach, Bill Paxton's character, rest in peace, he said something that I thought was really interesting, that I think black people in particular can learn a lot from. And it's coming from that whole might is right, Thor Ragnarok type of philosophy. And that is, he said that the black guy, Luke, cut him off because he said, what are you liberals willing to? And then the black guy cut him off. He was like, to die for it. Then he was like, nah, dying's easy. Killing is hard. What are you willing to kill for? That's the difference between black people and white people. That is in general, I'm not saying like individuals. I'm saying when it comes to our cultures, that's the difference. White people are willing to kill and do all kind of justifications. You know what I'm saying? Once they get power as to why they did this or that, or even say they're sorry for it, but they already got the power. So you know what I'm saying? Whereas black people, they're only willing, in many respects, to die. And that's why our heroes are people like Martin Luther King. You know what I'm saying? Who was assassinated. And their heroes are people like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. People who are willing to kill. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying one is right or wrong. I'm just saying that's the difference. That's the difference. And one, in many ways, has more power. And I think he demonstrated that when he put the knife to the Jewish guy's throat and was like, what would you do? What are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that that character is right, that he's morally right. What I'm saying is I think he was a black pill character. He saw the world as it was and not how he wanted it to be. And I think the liberals see the world as how they want it to be. And I think there's pros and cons to both viewpoints or to both ways. And I think in many ways the guy was probably black pilled because of what he had seen. He was a soldier, probably didn't have a great life growing up. Apparently he was a criminal. If you know, because they hinted that he was the one who kidnapped the girl, Jenny,
the little girl
that the cop was looking for throughout the entire movie. Now I have some questions about that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So let me hear some of you other guys' thoughts, especially you, Travis. I really want to hear some.
Oh no, I agree with, a lot with what you said. I think it was a great opening with the Bill Paxton character to set the tone of the film, for them to confront themselves, because because his character really represented to me Americana. That's the reason why most of our tax money goes to our military, because we Debo. We owe China money, but we're like Debo. You come and get the money, we're not going to pay it. So for the most part, might is right. And unfortunately, to what you're saying, I agree with what your point being, how black people versus white people. I always saw it like, psychopaths dealing with, empaths, those people who just feel everything, because we want to include everyone. We feel like, we like to believe that in the better angels of an individual for the most part.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying white people are psychopaths. They're not. I'm just saying that they grew up seeing Conan the Barbarian and and what you were saying, Thor, and the 300, that the war mentality. The closest we had something to that was Shaka Zulu, being shown. But yeah, and Alexander the Great, and well,
they glorified their war culture. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in many ways, especially in our community, it's almost like it's suppressed. But you're right, Travis. Well, that opening scene, like the stare between Bill Paxton's character and the character was, so I don't screw up the guy's name. What's it? It's Vance something, right? What's that guy's name?
Yeah.
Courtney B. Vance.
Yeah. They had
the tension. Yeah. Go ahead.
I just thought it was great directorial. I mean, the choices she made, to have him center, him at the head of the table, while he pretty much was the the leader of the group for the most part, and him front and center, and those opposing, like chess for the most part.
Yeah.
And I just thought the dialogue. I agree with what you were saying. The dialogue was really good. Patriotism does lead to nationalism. Via World War II and what they did in Germany. And his point being, liberals, all they want to do is protest, but they don't really want to do anything. What are you going to stand for? When you talk about powerful things, he said, lose me when you talk about powerful things. And I thought I said, wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
I dug that, but that really set.
Yeah. As much things that I disagreed with Bill Paxton's character, there were some other things where I'm like, oh, he kind of got y'all on that one. Kind of got y'all on that one. Even, it's probably going to get a little controversy, so I won't. The small hats, when he started talking about the small hats, and he didn't he said some controversial stuff about not believing in the Holocaust and stuff like that, or he didn't not believe it, but he didn't believe the number was as high as they were saying or whatever.
Yeah, when it fluctuated,
but
and all that.
Yeah, but when that's all, that's BS. I don't buy that. But when he made his point though, when he said, look, man, if there was a war between the U.S. and Israel, what side would you be on? And then he was like, whatever side pays me the most money. I was like, he didn't have to say anything. He was like, checkmate. He just went on to the next person, because he was like, you kind of made my point. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I was like, but that being said, one thing I noticed about this movie is I was particularly interested in Courtney B. Vance's character, Luke. I really watched him closely. The first thing I noticed is she portrayed him as rather sexless. That's the first thing. Like, he didn't have a girlfriend. He never kissed anybody. He was kind of like
He was very
rubby-dubby, touchy-feely on other man's girlfriend.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of weird.
I thought that was very strange as well.
Yeah, he was that. Also, of the liberals, he was the most psychopathic. That's for sure. And I didn't really quite know what to make of it, other than my basic thing that I got from it was, I don't know if this was her intention, but what I got from it is black people, as a result of being raised in this country, have a lot of dysfunctions. And I think he was representative of that. Now, I don't know if that's what her intent was with the character, but I think that's what I got from it. I think what I got from it is, you got the extremes, and I'm not saying that black people are the same as the most racist white supremacists, because I don't think that's true. Black people in this country aren't that. But I think when it comes to hatred, you know what I'm saying? When it comes to hating someone else because of what's happening in this country, and what you would do probably if you had the power, I think he represented that. I think he was like, yeah, if I had the power, I'd F all you up. Because I'll put it this way, right? Most of those people had no problems with offing anyone that was brought to that table, whether they were white, black, or female, until they brought that 17-year-old girl in there. Yeah, then that's when the Jewish guy got a little skittish. And then that's when the white girls got a little skittish. You know what I'm saying? But he was like, I don't care. If this is what we're going to do, I don't care how young they are.
Right.
In many ways, he became the reflection of Bill Paxton's character in many ways in that respects. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how the type of people that Bill Paxton are. That's how they think. I'll kill and do anything to achieve my ends. You know what I'm saying? And they become broken people because of it, and that's exactly what he became at the end of this movie. It was really interesting. Really interesting.
But I agree. I agree with what your point. I think to that point, it just showed the shortcomings of Stacy Title. For the most part, she was a white woman. And unfortunately, a lot of them feel that, one day black folks are going to do to them that was done to them, done to us, and that pretty much showcased itself in that character. That's how I took it.
Yeah.
All in all, I thought it was. I still thought it was great.
To be fair, though, do you think that's a legitimate fear that they have?
No, I no. The reason being is because you can use South Africa as an example. South Africa, there was 40 million Africans, versus 4 million, Afrikaners. And we could have done like Custer's Last Stand, but we didn't do that. We don't do that. And at the time when they had that, once the Afrikaners gave up, ended apartheid, they didn't seek revenge. Now, Winnie Mandela wanted to seek revenge. Winnie Mandela wanted to do that, but she made the comment, when Mandela went into prison, he went in as a lion and came back out as a toothless cat.
Yeah.
And and she was really disappointed. And that's the reason why they soon got a divorce, because of that. Because that strain on the relationship, even though none of us would have known who Mandela was if it wasn't for Winnie. I just had to throw that in.
I hear you. But sometimes though, like I think black women, particularly black women who've been in similar circumstances as people like black people in the United States, and in South Africa it was very similar. Sometimes they can be way more hardcore than the men, but sometimes I don't think they think things all the way through. Like, okay, let's say South Africans would have gotten their revenge. You know what I'm saying? South Africa isn't an island. They're connected to many other powerful nations who would have brought hell down on South Africa. You know?
The only correction I would make to what you said, it would, they were seeking justice versus revenge. Although they could have made it more equitable, but they, for the most part, let the people, the Afrikaners, control a lot. I see what you're saying. To this day, talking about the infrastructure, because it felt like if they took everything over, then South Africa would have, their economics would have plummeted, because they're tied to Europe and to the world.
There's some truth to that, though. There is some truth to that.
Yeah, it was. True. It made sense. It made sense. But they now things are starting to change. And being more equitable, for the most part. Parity, I believe in.
What's his name? Somebody talked about that. What's the young Black Panther's name? That he was a young guy and they killed him. They murdered him in his apartment. Dang, they just made a movie about him.
Fred Hampton.
Fred Hampton. He said that he was like if you're a people who traditionally have been poor, destitute, enslaved, or whatever, you know what I'm saying, and you just automatically are given the reins of power, you'll be just as bad as the former master that had oppressed you. So until you get a political education, until you get some kind of higher learning, higher abilities to be able to govern yourselves in the society, it could be worse. You get a situation that's worse. So I think there's some truth to that. I don't know whether what they did in South Africa was right or wrong, but I can see why they made that decision. But getting back to the movie, Big O, what's your thoughts, man?
Hold on for a second. But Courtney Vance, though, hit Luke. Do you think that he's? I think he was more of a reflection of African Americans, though, and what they went through, though. So. Can you really say just because the South Africans didn't want to take revenge or have that same type of hatred in your heart, can you say the same about African Americans that grew up on this continent?
Well, I think that's why he made a comparison to South Africa, because they have a similar history to us, and they outnumber white people, whereas we don't outnumber white people over here. You see what I'm saying?
The reason being is that I definitely see your point about there is distinction between South Africa and America. Our experiences are different somewhat, but when they killed the person from the nation, because that's more of a militant side,
exactly.
And he didn't identify with that.
Nope.
So I agree to your point that he does represent African Americans. But a lot of African Americans, that's the reason why, Farrakhan, who just turned 90, still is not being, a lot of Black folks don't want to align themselves with or consider him a friend because of that reason. And because they feel that he's too militant or too Black, but that's the reason why I say that no, I don't think African Americans would be.
It's a good point too, because I've said for a long time that generally Black people in this country, African Americans, care more about white acceptance than Black militancy or Black power or Black nationhood. They care, and if you look at that, Luke's character, I mean, throughout, I think his desire to want to kill people, who he found reprehensible, overtook his desire to want to be accepted by those people. In large part, he's there because he wants to be accepted by them. That's why he was always touchy-feely on homegirl and stuff like that, stuff like that. And that's why he didn't have a problem with killing the the hardcore pro-black NOI guy who didn't want the pork. He was like, you can feed me to you can feed this to me. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's
He didn't have a problem with
it. But I think that's my point though. It's because the African Americans here want to be accepted. So wouldn't it be more in their nature to follow the ones that they want to be accepted by?
Yeah, but
wouldn't they be more prone to enact?
But what Travis is saying,
what
Travis is saying, they would not be more prone to seek vengeance.
Yeah,
they're not more prone. Look, if we were going to do it, we'd already done it.
Yeah,
we won't do it. I'm not saying we should do it. I'm just saying we would have already done it. It's not in us. It's not in our culture. There you go.
No. I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's the whole point. That what I was talking about. Suggesting you watch Dear Mama. That's exactly what Tupac was saying to the older generation. Because in the 90s, he was like, "I'm ready to fight. We were ready to do something. We have a warrior class, but y'all, I mean, that tactic that respectability, politics is not working for us anymore. These cats are dying out in the streets, and we ready to fight. And we need you to lead, but you're not leading us." And that's where that dichotomy. And then, of course, he got into the gang culture and not understanding what he was getting into, and that's the reason why he died at 25. But like I said last week, he got the same teachings I got.
He didn't come from a stable family home, though.
No,
right?
he didn't.
But Orlando, please chime in.
Oh no, man! Like I really enjoy the movie, man. I love all the different takes on the the different views that everyone had and stuff. I really felt like this movie was a very interesting take on these topics. And one of my questions I have about, like, after they were killing them, like, what is the tomato supposed to represent? Is it more, because I saw a lot of representation in things, whether it was for the artwork, like when certain things was done. I love how they blend the guy's artwork into it to help tell the story. I know, like, maybe nowadays it'd probably be more of like a motion graphic type of thing. I could see that happening, but for back in 1996, I love the fact they used that type of. But yeah, my question is mainly like, one of my questions on it's like with the symbol of the tomato and stuff like that.
I saw it as it's the fruit of their labor.
Right.
Because if you notice, like, they kept getting more and more of them. Yeah. They got more and more of them. They got sweeter and more juicy and stuff like that. That's kind of how I saw it. But someone else might have a different.
I saw it as a physical manifestation of. Basically the work that they were doing. That's how I saw it.
Gotcha.
Travis?
Yeah, man.
Oh, I'm not, I'm not too sure what her interpretation. I mean, what she was trying to go for, and I like it that she left it open for interpretation. So I agree with both of you.
Okay,
I'm not sure what her intentions were, but I like the symbolism.
I have a question for all of you, and you can each try to answer it one by one, starting with you, Avidya. And it's the same question that they posed in the movie. If you did have a time machine and you could go back and you could before Hitler became Hitler, when he was young, and would you kill Hitler or would you do something else?
What? Well, I wouldn't go that. I mean, I wouldn't go to Hitler. I would have. He would. If I had a time machine, he wouldn't be my choice. I mean, unfortunately, my. But no. To answer your question, no, I wouldn't kill him. I would definitely do as. I can't think of the actor's name right now.
Ron Perlman.
Yeah, Ron Perlman. Perlman said I would try to change his mind. And he was an artist. Hitler at his at the basis was an artist that just went rogue, and I think he channeled that unfortunately, that creativity into something more diabolical for the most part. But no, to answer your question.
What about you, Johnny Mozzarella?
I mean, it depends. Will it actually change anything? Because I don't know. I honestly feel like when it comes to World War II and everything that happened, I mean, obviously you have your leaders, right? And in every battle, every war, whatever, that I guess get the people moving. But I mean, it wasn't like it was just one person. I mean, it was many people of why what happened is what happened. So I mean, I don't think killing one person would even be enough. And then at what times we talk about? You talk about going back when he was a baby and then ending him right there,
No, when he's like when he was a teenager or a young man before he fought in the war.
Yeah,
remember he fought in war. Remember he fought in World War One before he fought in World War One, before Germany went through the Depression and all that stuff. You got him as a young upstart, you know.
Yeah, so I mean, and then even then, I mean, I'm sure I still don't think killing him will be enough because there was a lot of reasons why, like the whole reason why Germany was in a depression. Well, not only because there was a world depression, but because of what happened after World War One. So there was a lot of there was a lot of different figures. I don't think killing one person would even do anything. So I mean, and no, I wouldn't kill him because I don't think it would actually solve anything.
What about you, Bigo?
Yeah, I feel the same way too, man. Like basically trying to talk because, I mean, if you kill him, I mean, it might be a replacement come in. You see what I'm saying? So I mean, it's just, you know, yeah. I always feel like someone else will come in, but if you got someone that's if you're even to change them, you know, talking to them wise and stuff like that. No, but yeah, I wouldn't kill him.
Yeah.
While I was on.
Yeah, man. I don't know, guys. That's a hard one.
I'd like to respond.
Wait, hold on, because technically you're supposed to be part of it there because you didn't watch the movie. But I'll give you a chance.
Well, he's had a lot of insight now to really kind of
After me, Hyper King. Yeah, after me. I think it's.
I watched that trailer 3 times.
Okay, I'll say this. I think it's easy to say that he would kill him because of what he's done or what he might go to do. Because you know he's in modernity he's one of the most vilified people in history. You know, for obvious reasons, for just reasons, for right reasons. I think. But I think you start coming with other questions of about predestination and environment versus nature and nurture, or nurture versus nurture type of questions. Matter of fact, they did a movie about this called The Boys from Brazil that was similar, right? It wasn't quite going back in time and killing Hitler, but cloning Hitler and then putting him in circumstances that were similar to where Hitler had to see if you could get the same outcome. So they could redo Nazi Germany or whatever. But I think that would be a hard one for me. For me, it'd be more I don't have enough information. I think people are largely products of their society, and I don't think that any amount of talking to him would change him. I think you would have to have another option. You would have to kidnap him and have him raised in America if you didn't want to kill him. You know what I'm saying? Or raised somewhere else, put him on a desert island so that he's enculturated in a different way. Like you put him in an extreme environment where he has to he's not in the German culture. He doesn't get all the white supremacist crap taught to him. He has to go work with brown people or something like that, for 20 years of his life. I think that would be the only way to really change him. I don't think talking to him and trying to convince him with arguments would really do much. I think talking to him would amount to the same thing. I think he would if he went to war, if he went to World War One, if he saw what was going on in Germany, he's already got the racist indoctrination, from the culture itself. Because that's the other thing. It wasn't like Hitler they like to try to say Hitler just convinced all these people. No, those people are already down that route. There had been anti-Semitism in Europe for the Middle Ages. You know what I'm saying? They were already going down that route. He just kind of was able to galvanize it because of the the desperate straits they had found themselves in.
Right. The poverty.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if I would kill him, but I would, if I had the power, I would just like remove him from that environment. You know what I'm saying? I think that would be the best way if you wanted to stop Hitler. But like John said, like, you know, Hitler was funded by like the Tool Society and the IBM and a whole bunch of places. They would just find another figurehead, you know. So now I don't think I would have killed him. I don't think I would
I
have killed him.
kind of agree a little bit with that. I think the whole idea of propaganda and people thinking, you know, in non-creative, non-imaginative ways, you know, was really at the core of that time period. And yeah, like killing him is not very creative, not very imaginative to assume that you take off, you know, this head of this, you know, atrocity, that the body won't still grow, or another head would be substituted. A lot of it was ideology and thinking at that time. So how can you abolish that? How can you
And to be fair, it's ideology that's really old. It's just it was the first time it was filmed. You know what I'm saying? Kingdoms had been conquering kingdoms and enslaving people and genociding people all throughout human civilization. You know what I'm saying? It's just in modern times it was filmed. He became the face of it. You know what I'm saying? Right. I'm not justifying what people were doing way back then. I'm just saying that, you know, it wasn't new. It wasn't more evil than what had happened previously. It just happened in a time when we had mechanized warfare.
Right. It became globalized.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I watched the movie now. It sounds like
Maybe you should have done the one job. The one job.
All right.
All right.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
What do y'all think her overall point for the movie was?
I think balance, just like the Force. I think that's her overall point. Is that you know, liberals, I think a lot of times get on this moral high road and we're so smart and we just know better and stuff like that, and they forget about the very foundations of what keeps the society together, and that's like the homegirl said in that one video, the young girl, family values. Now those family values can be negative or positive, you know, for certain people in that society, but at the end of the day, once you stray too far away from any type of normalcy, which is what I think liberals are doing today, then you have a risk of your society collapsing. And the same is true for the extreme right too. You know, when you become too fascist and you just suppressing people, then your society collapses. People are going to rise up, which was literally the story or the history of the age of man, the whole Enlightenment age. You know, it's regular people rising up. You know, it started with technically, I guess, the Magna Carta, which I guess it's not the start, but it has its roots with the Magna Carta. And then like conservatives, right? I'm always arguing with conservatives, you know, because they say, well, you're a socialist. I'm like, well, you're a socialist too. This is a socialist country. Voting, having regular people having the right to vote, it's a socialist idea. You know what I'm saying? But you know, they don't like the word, so they try to make, it's freedom or it's patriotism. No, it's socialism. That's where it comes from. It comes from the socialist movement. You know, because for a long time, even if you were white, if you were poor, or even if you were a white man, if you were poor and not a landowner, you didn't have the right to vote. You didn't have it. So it's a socialist country, and so I think she was trying to talk about balance. I think you need to have a balanced approach, and I think that's what Ron Perlman's character ultimately represented. Because if you remember at the end, they were kind of hinting at, because he was talking to like a crowd of people, that he was probably going to run for president. Mm-hmm. And I thought about it. I was like, you know what? As much as I probably hate to admit it, because he kind of comes off as like a dirtbag, he'd probably make a good president, because he understands the dichotomy. He understands, okay, he'll use the far right to get elected, but he'll run as a moderate. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, and then that's the fantasy.
Wait. Travis wanted to say, I want to hear that.
No, I have to challenge you on that. I think you need to. The ending of the third act, I think she left it open whether or not he would be the next Hitler or the next Antichrist type of thing. Because, because he does, when him giving a speech and saying, she left it open-ended whether or not, left it up to us to decide whether or not he was going to be a good leader or the next Hitler. Yeah, I that's the reason why I really enjoyed the film a lot.
Yeah,
I agree with Travis on that, and the reason why is because he before they took the last toast, or before they left, he was basically saying that when they were just like, well, would you ever run for president? And he was just like, the president? He's like, no, he's a figurehead. He's like, I have real power. He's like, I have real power. I have the power of my voice. So I kind of agree with Travis. So it's just like, which way is he going to go? Because what's the old saying? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So who's to say like, okay, yeah, okay, I become president, I can do whatever I want,
but as president, he can't do whatever he wants.
Yeah, but
to a degree, he could, right? Because he has the title, the figurehead, and he also has the voice where he can control people and make people do what he wants. So he has both. He has both the physical representation, but then he also has the psychological part. So
yeah, but he also has like the Senate, the Congress. You know what I'm saying? All these checks and balances, and half the country is probably going to hate him. So I think
they wouldn't hate him because he's using his own platform.
All right, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. We all know he would run as a conservative, right? We can at least.
Oh well, yes,
right.
Yes.
You think mom and dad are going to vote for him? If a person like mom and dad would vote for him. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's much harder.
Hold on for a second now. But a person like mom and dad didn't vote for Trump, and he won.
yeah, he won. And guess what? And guess what? He was very ineffective as a president.
Oh, well, he was, but he didn't actually have them. But Ron's what was his name? Norman. Norman didn't come off as an idiot like Trump though.
Okay, well, all right. George W. Bush. Well, he wasn't an idiot.
Oh, that's true.
He only got one term.
Yeah.
That's
only a one term president.
But then it goes back right there to how, why did they just want to kill him? It was like, you keep seeing some of his views and stuff and all being posted throughout the movie. And of course, they're like, hey, man, this is like the big cheese one right here. If we take him out, then it's like, but during that time right there, it was like they got too high off their power in doing that they started getting sloppy with stuff. And then, a man happened to come in and infiltrate at the right time. And it was like, man, okay, I see what's really going on,
I see where you guys are coming from, but I think, okay, when I analyze Ron Perlman's character, right? And when they first meet him in the airport, right? Now we've seen guys like that, like Bill O'Reilly. He's that's kind of how he reminded me of, like a Bill O'Reilly in the airport. He's an asshole on air, and he's an asshole off air. You know what I'm saying? He seemed to be very down to earth, very mundane, and he was like, "Where can I get something to eat?" Now, an asshole would be like, "I'm not gonna go eat with these strange people, especially this black guy over here."
Right. Yeah.
He seems like a regular decent person. He's kind of an asshole because he's using theatrics and stuff to get views. But I'll be honest with you, the more and more I learn about business, most business is freaking like scammy. It is. I mean, most of it is. I'm sorry, it is scammy and is nepotism.
Well, that's what they was talking about as well too. Like he was saying, like, oh no, he's a pro at this. He knows how to word things. When they was trying to bring that out, bring that to the it was like, nah, he knows how to talk his way out of stuff.
What I'm saying though is he had no reason to try to word things in a certain way until after he found out that
they were trying basically what they was doing.
Already, to me, he seemed like he was just being genuine. You know what I'm saying? It sounded like he was just being genuine, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, Ron, you really need to see I think you definitely check it out because I mean, just to piggyback on what you're saying, the Bill O'Reilly, because at the time when when this came out in '95, you know, you had the Rush Limbaughs. This is
Rush
when Fox
Limbaugh's,
News
yeah.
was just coming out, and you know, and it was not a one side. It was not a both sides delivering of the news. It was more pointed.
Yeah.
It had an opinion, you know, and they were trying to drive that opinion home. And that in that climate, that's the reason why she, you know, that Ron Perlman character represented. So, and you know, to me, I felt like the film was like foreshadowing, because if it wasn't for Fox News, you wouldn't have a Trump, because they were all behind Trump to help him get the election to become president, and that's what eventually the Ron Perlman character was gonna did. You know, so you know, it was almost prophetic the way she in her opinion piece, which I consider the film to be. Well, all films are, but for the most part, but that's what she was trying to say. That was her message that she was trying to say, that, hey, we're going to have rivaling, contrary opinions, and we're going to have debate. Hopefully, we have healthy debates. But at the end of the day, I, I don't know about the effectiveness, because you know my older brother, he's conservative. He's conservative, diehard conservative. But he didn't vote for Barack Obama or anything like that. Voted for Trump. And he and I would debate all the time, and he would make the point that, hey, um, you know, well, I don't want to say our business, but anyway, the point being is that like right now the Title 41 or 42, where it was lifted. Now you have a lot of immigrants coming, and now they have like 10,000, and you got these cities, and it's affecting Black communities because they're just housing these people in schools, schools that are predominantly Black and Latino, in New York and stuff like that, and they're in these hotels. But and then on top of that, the debt ceiling and stuff like that. All this stuff is starting to, um, play in concert of what's going on right now. Whether or not, because I believe that, I don't know, if all these strong opinions start battling, and then you're gonna have like a Bill Paxton character, doing just like when they stormed the Capitol,
Yep.
in support of Trump. I mean, that stuff is true. These people believe this stuff. These are, people believe that they're real patriotic. That Trump has a lot of power, even though you say he's not effective. He has a lot of influence. They try to downplay it in the news.
I'll
Like
say this was because, in my opinion, right, when you look at
Hey, Brian, before you do that, I would like to further Travis' point, because he brought something up that I just realized, that this got released in '95 during the presidential election between Bill Clinton and Bob Dole. So it was during that time period when you had the right wing. They started, and I noticed, like, we had two. I guess the Democratic era where you had, because he beat out Bob Dole obviously in '96, so he got his second term.
Who?
And then
Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So that might have been a lot of where she got, because you have this period, this era of the Democrats that's basically running the country. And then because you had that for so long, she may have been foreshadowing to, like, okay, look, because we've had the liberals have had this long period of time, someone like a Norman, played by Ron Perlman, could easily come along, and he's so far what he's projecting, even though his character, they showed us his character is probably more in the middle of the road, but because he's projecting this far right wing stance or whatever, and because you have those groups of people, and then what happened right after Bill Clinton, George W. Bush got put in there, and then almost the exact same thing happened the following 8 years after you
All right,
had the.
maybe you guys are kind of missing my overall point. Because I think when you talk about American politics, you got to separate the dog and pony show from what's actually going on, right? The dog and pony show is left versus right, Republican versus Democrat, the Jews versus the WASP, the blacks versus the whites. You know what I'm saying? And I think that and all the culture war stuff. Some of it I think is important, but a lot of it is just BS. We're arguing over stuff that just really has no real consequences, right? But the reason why I think he would make a good president is the same reason why, and when I say good, I don't mean like good from everything that I want out of a president. I mean good as far as he'll be balanced. Because if you look at Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, George Bush Sr., George W. Bush, it is really, even Obama, definitely Obama. There's not that much difference between those guys how they actually govern, what they actually do, is what I'm saying. They're very moderate. They're very middle of the road presidents.
Are you talking about as far as like their policies and what they actually did while they were in the presidency?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why George Bush Sr. didn't get a second term.
A re-election.
He was like, because he had to raise taxes. He had to do it. That's one thing I think people realize when you're electing a political official, you're not electing them to do everything that you think is going to be what you think needs to happen. You're electing them to make hard decisions. That's what a republic is. You're giving over them a certain amount of power, so because they're going to make those black swan type decisions that you don't that either you can't make because you don't have the power to make it, or you're just not in a position to make it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I got from it. Now maybe you're right about them. It might be like a foreshadowing of somebody like Trump rising. That might be true. That might be true. But I'll be honest with you. When I look at like what Trump actually does, like his policies, like when I line them up, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't. He's a very boisterous, loud person. But what he actually did, I'm like why? Where's all the hate coming from? Other than the fact that he's provocative. You know what I'm saying? But when you actually look at what he does, like he's not that far off from John F. Kennedy, as far as what his actual policies are. So I don't know, man. I think that we get caught up in the dog and pony show part, and I think that's what Ron Perlman was saying. Like, yeah, I say all this stuff to get views, to get looks, because anyone who gets to that level of power is going to be somewhat of a narcissist, somewhat of a attention whore anyway. You almost have to be. They say the same thing about actors. You know what I'm saying? And you have to do that because views and votes. You got to have it to get elected. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I didn't see it as particularly a bad thing. I just saw it as this is what it is. He saw a lane, he took it. He took the conservative Southern strategy lane in his news show, whatever, and he's going to ride that to the presidency. But he'll probably operate as a moderate. I mean, he said it. He was like, you got really extreme people on both sides, but most people that pushes most people to the middle. Now, there are circumstances where if something catastrophic happened in this country, that it could push people either really far to either side. But for the most part, if things are pretty much going whatever normally, most people are going to stay right in the middle. And I think that's people like mom and dad. They kind of represent that. You know what I'm saying? Some of our white friends, their parents, a lot of them, they're called far right. They're moderates. There's some things they agree with. They probably agree more on the conservative side, but there's also things on the liberal side, like that they agree with. And I think he was generally right about that. So I wasn't concerned that he was going to run for president. You know what I'm saying? I could see it in him, right? Obviously, that's ultimately what his aim is. What I'm saying is that's the type of people who run for president. The people who can see both sides and use it to their advantage to get elected. I mean, Obama did the same thing. That's why he was out there playing basketball. You know what I'm saying? That's why Biden was out there talking about how he was at the pool with black people and how he said roaches were eating the hairs on his. It was some crazy stuff he was saying. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. But it's the same reason why Kamala has to go wear Timberlands. That's why I call her. It was a term I call her. I can't remember what it is now. I call it the Tim's trickster. She has to.
What about
she has to turn on her blackness to get the black vote. Huh?
What about the Men in Black shades? Vitamin he wearing.
Yeah, that's because he's senile and old. But so that to be honest, guys, even with the January 6th thing, it didn't really frighten me. I was like, okay, white people. Look, here's the difference between white people and black people. I'm glad you brought up January 6th traffic. Black people, all throughout the summer after COVID hit, like just tore up cities all throughout the country. All throughout the country. Whether it was justified or not, I'm not going to get into all that. But I'm just saying, when we get mad and we get upset, we just start tearing shit. Just tearing up. Whatever, just tearing up. White people took that shit to the halls of power. To the halls of power. See, I don't disagree with the tactic. I don't have a problem with the tactic. I just have a problem with why they were fighting. What they were fighting for was stupid. Okay, he lost. All the data show that Trump lost. What they were fighting for was stupid. The tactic, I don't have any problems with that at all. Because I personally think, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it on YouTube. But I'll just say I didn't have a problem with the tactic.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. I just think the point, the most dangerous point that I think people don't understand is that he validated. He gave validation to their patriotism. The alt-right, the ones who believe that. I'm talking about the militia. When you have a sitting president who are saying that, hey, this is your country, it hits their ear differently than us, and what he says does carry weight. I mean,
but is he wrong though?
No. What
he was deflecting. He was deflecting responsibility, and I thought that was one of the issues. That's one of the issues.
What do you mean deflecting responsibility?
I don't hate. I don't hate Trump. I think to be honest with you, he's an opportunist. He's a smart man, and he understands power. He understands power, and that's to your point, Brian. I think that Black folks don't understand power. We want to be friends instead of understanding what power. We're not seeking power. Power does not care about being your friend.
Yeah, we just want to accept. We just want acceptance. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I'm hoping that the Black community will understand and start to embrace instead of trying to look for. I don't know, but anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that as far as him deflecting blame about what happened on January 6th and all that, I mean, you're right about that. I don't know. I didn't look at all the. I didn't watch all the footage.
I'm talking about Ron Perlman's character. Mm-hmm. He was basically saying like, okay, if I say something and people go out there and act on it, and he was just like, that's not my fault.
It isn't his fault.
But don't get me wrong. I do think every person is responsible for their own actions. Like, don't get me wrong, yes, I do agree with that, but it's almost like the same thing. Well, you can't vilify Adolf Hitler because he didn't go specifically and kill every single Jew, but we still hold him accountable because he's the leader. So it's the same thing with Ron's character.
No, it's not. It's not the same. It's not the same.
How's it not the same?
It's not the same because Ron isn't an elected official.
I'm talking about if he would have become. I'm talking about the hypothetical if he became the president. He spoke.
I think if he became a president, he'd operate as a moderate. That's what I think.
Yeah,
he might use all that bullshit to get elected, but I think he would operate as a moderate.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So the things that say okay. If you run, if you're still speaking those same things, and then negative things come out of it, or bad things come out of it, you don't believe that he should be held accountable for his words?
I think if he ran, he would do just like all politicians do. He would target his base first to get the his party's nomination, or not nomination, but what is it called? When they get elected in their party, where they become the
Oh,
dang. Yeah, I know. It's not. It's getting close to election season, so basically they become the candidate for their party, right?
Right.
He was,
Yeah,
you
the
know, he was
nominee.
the nominee. He would say all, you know, like how he said in the thing, the Indians, what were they doing with it? They were just, you know, shooting bows and arrows, and he would say all that crazy shit. And then when it got time to get closer and closer to the general election, he would soften up. That's what I think he would do, you know, because he has to win. He has to get enough of the other side. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I think he would soften it up. That's what I think he would do. I don't think he. Nah, I could be wrong. I don't think he was a Hitler. I don't think that was. Even if he was, I don't think he would have the power to really be able to act on it. But going back to Travis's point about him legitimizing the Patriots, like, okay, in my opinion, whether I disagree with their ideology or not, these white people in their militias do have a right. They do have what's it called? What's the term I'm looking for? An entitlement. You know what I'm saying? I think every American is entitled to certain things. Now, do they have the right to go and harm someone else with their militia? No. But when he says it's their country, it is their country. It is. It's their country. It's more their country than our country. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's the problem with black people. We want to be Americans. We want to be accepted. You know what I'm saying? But we don't realize what our real position is in the country. We're the bottom caste of this country. If we want power, we need the ones who need to be creating the militias. You know what I'm saying? We need to become more militarized, in my opinion. You know, so that's how I see it. Like I don't agree with their ideology, especially their racism and shit like that. But when he says it, I'm like, yeah, that's right. I'm like, look, I'll say this. When and I'm going to say this very carefully, but I'll say this: when COVID hit, I didn't just sit around. I got armed. I didn't wait for some dumb president. I didn't wait for all black people to get together. I didn't wait for some white people to already be at my door trying to hang me. I went out. I got armed. And I went out and learned how to shoot. You know what I'm saying? And that's what the Bill Paxton character was saying. He was black pill, whether he's a racist or not. He saw the world as it was. This is very fragile what we have here. You know what I'm saying? He saw the world as he was. No amount of me, oh, Trump is a bad person, blah, 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 is going to change the fact that Trump won. And guess what? 9 times 10, if he doesn't go to jail, he's going to win again. You know what I'm saying?
But, okay, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, Brian. I agree with you. But it's just my only point is this: is that at the time when Stacy Title made the movie, it was a Rush Limbaugh. Fox News was just coming into existence, and she felt like those people with these pointed, talk radio, having these talking points will galvanize people and push them, a person like Bill Paxton. In our case, we had Dylan Ruth, who went into a church and shot up, and killed those people because he was motivated and he was listening to those talking points. And she was pathetic to the point in the film saying that same talking point, let's say if that person was able to get to the highest office in the land, and that's, I felt like that's the reason why I suggest the film.
But how's that any different from the last 200 years of our history in this place?
The difference now, I feel, what you talking about for us as
white people being
I look at everything through a black lens.
being terroristic. Like how's that? Like, and this is gonna be somewhat controversial. And let me say this in a way that, because I'm not trying to be insensitive to the families that maybe lost some people in that church. And again, I'm going back to Bill Paxton's character. We know the history of this country. We know what white people can get away with, sometimes. And I'm like, all right. And this is South Carolina. This is South Carolina. You're the first thing I thought about after all that happened. I was like, every black church in in this state, every Sunday you need to have armed people out there guarding the church. Did we come together? Did we organize to make that happen? No, they got on TV and they forgave. They forgave Dylan Roof. So you get what you get, man. You get what you get. Like, if someone keep poking you in the eye, you know what I'm saying? You're just gonna say, just keep poking at me. You get what you get. You know what I'm saying?
To your point, I talked to a friend of mine who lost his sister. She was one of the Manual 9.
Yeah.
And and I got a little heated, because I felt like, he reduced, and Dylan Ruth reduced her life to an anecdote, something that he can, experience, something that, he can learn from. You follow me? And I felt that was, and then I was angry at him because I was like, why did y'all just stand there and forgive this man when he didn't even ask for your forgiveness? And he was, luckily my friend was willing to look past my anger. But yeah, I mean, to your point, yeah, I agree with what your point being is, but I'm just saying is that hopefully with here in South Carolina, specifically Black folks, and I don't think they're going to be militant. Growing up, learning the 10-point plan, I didn't want to be militant. I wanted to be one of those hippie, arts, and I didn't want to, because it had a negative connotation from Black folks. They didn't want. When my wife would tell you, when she first met me, she thought I was, he's one of those Afrocentrics, pro-Black, she was, held me at arm's length because she was not exposed to, those teachings and Black liberation philosophy and ideology and understanding the history and stuff like that. But I'm hoping that, to your point, that we become more aware. The difference to your question earlier, what's the difference now versus 200 years? I think the only thing that's changed through time is how we receive and receive information and information now. It's a lot faster. That's throughout time. Now that we have information at our fingertips through these phones and stuff like that, and we get it at as fast, we don't have to have horse and buggy and finally gets to us. It's a lot faster, but we're not on the same page, like you made the point last week, because I was chewing on that when you made that point. We're not on the same page. And hopefully we'll become, we can have platforms like this or larger platforms where we have this type of dialogue to come on, become on one accord, one page. Hopefully that's my hope. That's the reason why, I like your podcast, because I think it's great.
Our podcast, Avidya, our podcast.
So, this information can get out there, and people can have these conversations and spark, discussion.
Yeah, and this movie, woof, it definitely sparks discussion. That's for sure. It'd be interesting to get because a lot of people call me conservative. I'm not. I'm actually far more of a leftist than I am a conservative. But I'm not a blind leftist. Like I can see the faults on the left, and I think the fact that we've tried to adopt we try to adopt everyone's issues rather than kind of sticking with that. All right, look, what's best for the family? Because that's the foundation of society. What's the best thing that we did for families? You know what I'm saying? I think the fact that we've kind of gotten away from that is why the left in many ways is weak. We try to appease everybody, and it's impossible. You can't appease everybody. But it'd be interesting to sit down with diehard conservatives, people who listen to people like Tucker Carlson and all those guys every day, Fox News every day, to kind of see what their interpretation of the movie is. Because what I really meant by what's the difference between now and say over in the 200 years. Because I think that's a good point as far as the speed of which information traverses. But really, what I meant is, and we saw it in New York. There was a case in Alabama where they caught a guy on like a hunting camera where he's running. Is a black guy, I think, who was injured, who's running away from these white dudes, and I think they lynched him. And I haven't heard anything much about it since then. All the different cases that we know about from down in Georgia with Ahmaud Arbery, it happens a lot more times than I think people realize. And my thing is, I think black people to some extent believe in this system, and then a part of them don't really believe in it, and we just kind of religiously go and vote and say, hey, I did my civic duty, and I voted for Obama, and things are gonna get better. And to be fair, when you look at things from let's say like the 1950s and 1960s compared to now, some things have gotten better. I'm not gonna sit here and say, okay, everything's exactly the same, but there is a disparity in how white people are treated when they become vigilantes, when they engage in terrorist acts, and I think if we haven't learned in 200 years about how to deal with those types of problems, I don't think we're ever going to learn. I think, like I said before, Travis, I think it's over. I think it's over. There's ways of dealing with that, and I won't say exactly what they are, but they are very black pill. There are very black pill ways of dealing with that, because if you're going to wait around for this society to deal with it, there won't be any black people around by the time they say, yeah, what we did was wrong, and let's make amends. There would be hardly any black people left in this country. But moving on, I have a question about this movie that I have to ask, because and other people have asked this question. Who killed Jenny? Who killed Jenny? Now, I'm not gonna lie. Now, I didn't want to believe this because it's the black character. He's like the one black character in the movie. But the more I watched it, I was like, is he the murderer? Is this like a whodunit? Because in the movie, right, there's a couple scenes. There's one scene where the sheriff comes to the door, to the graduate's door, or to the undergrad's door, and she says that. Well, no, let me step back. They show a piece of paper with Bill Paxton's character on it, and on it said he was wanted for some criminal things, and one of them might have been child molestation or something like that, right? So he wasn't a good dude, not a good dude, right? And then she comes to the door and says that they found the girl's blood in his truck, right? And there's another scene where she unlawfully goes into the property and starts snooping around, and the black guy catches her. Zach catches her, or Luke catches her. And it's this really weird scene where she's like, "Have you seen this person?" And then he just like starts staring off into space like a crazy person. And he drops his popsicle, and his red popsicle falls into the tomatoes. Tomatoes, and I'm like, does the red popsicle represent the little girl, and it falls into the grave of the tomatoes? I was like, I don't know. And then you gotta think, he's the most psychopathic. You know what I'm saying? There's one scene where he's at the table, right? And they have the girl who's suing the school for making her take the sex education classes. And she's like, she's underage. She's 17. He was like, you know what you need? You need a big fat, DICK. Yeah, I'm like, all right.
At the end of the movie, after we got finished watching it, we talked about this movie for about an hour and a half.
Jesse.
Yeah. And the whole time we was just like, we think Luke is the actual killer, because we honestly feel that way, because we feel like the entire movie, a veil was being lifted for who Luke actually truly was, because he fits the profile so well. I just think that what is it called, a high functioning sociopath? I think that's what a character like him would be considered. But we think that because they killed Zach and all of his liberal friends were so complicit to it that it slowly lifted the veil of who Luke really was. That's the reason why he was pointing the gun at Cameron Diaz's character at the very end, because I think it was truly inside of him. You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm just speculating. I don't really know, but after the movie, I was just like, I think Luke was the actual.
I thought the same thing. I was like, which pisses me off because it kind of goes to Travis's point. Yeah, a white woman directed this. You know what I'm saying? She's always got the black dude rubbing up on the other dude's girlfriend, and he just seems kind of. This is like,
but it was not only that, but it was the veracity of how fast he wanted to kill that little girl. I mean, he was
like, "Oh, let's get it over with." Yeah, I was like, "God damn!"
It wasn't even hesitation. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't even any type of hesitation. So I don't know. I still we came to the conclusion we believe Luke did it, but I like how she left it open ended.
I was like, because the blood in the truck could have easily been if he had access to the girl because he killed her. He could have planted it. He could have planted it. Yeah,
he could have planted it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, yo. And the whole red popsicle, I was like, I don't know, man. This is
Who moved the truck? Who moved the truck?
Luke did.
Him and
Luke is the one who moved the truck.
Yeah.
Luke
moved it. Yeah. So man, it's
It kind of goes back to my question too earlier when I was asking, like, what do you think the overall point in the movie is? And I agree with you, Brian. I do think that the movie is. I think she is trying to push balance. But one of the things that I think, or it could have been like another point or another, I don't know,
subtext.
Subtext of the movie was the fact that like how we justify our actions.
Mm-hmm.
Like no matter which side of the aisle that you're on, we all justify our actions, no matter how nefarious the actions might be.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're always going to justify what we're going to do just to say that we're right. And that's the part that I think that spoke to me more than even the whole balance thing, because as soon as the tables were turned and they were the ones that were committing the crimes and the act of for our beliefs, they use the same justifications that as the Republicans did.
Yeah,
so I just thought that was I don't know. To me, that hit me more is just how people justify their actions, no matter how nefarious they might be. I just thought that was a good subtext to the movie.
Yeah, I agree, and I think also how those types of acts can change you, because like I said, Pauline, you know, she came off as like the innocent, caring white woman who would never hurt a fly, but then man, once she got into it, boy, it's almost like she was getting off to it, whereas her boyfriend, he couldn't sleep, he didn't want to have sex with her, because it was like, you know, and that was a really interesting dynamic. I didn't quite get the significance of the painting he did on the ceiling though, with the God
whatever touching
finger. It was because they were trying to play God. I didn't quite get that part. Go ahead, Travis.
They were judging.
What you talking about? Michael, God's where Adam's touching God's hand.
Yeah, because the Jewish guy, he painted he couldn't sleep one night, and he painted that famous painting of God touching Adam's finger on their ceiling. You know what I'm saying? And even Ron Perlman kind of looked up at it at the end of it when they were about to all drink from their poison cups. So I thought I didn't quite know what the significance of that was, but I thought it was really interesting how their ordeal changed all of them, or like what John said, kind of brought to surface some of the darker aspects of themselves, of who they were. But that's a good point too, John. I think about what you said about how we justify some of the horrible things that we might do in the name of some ideology, and how in many ways they became they became like the people in Germany. You know what I'm saying? They did this dastardly thing and they justified it. But at the same time, man, like it's like I kind of saw where Zach's character was coming from. Like, if you're not willing to stand or die for something, or kill for something, others will, and you'll be dominated. It's kind of like that one scene in Black Panther where Wakabi was like, soon they'll have the same type of technology we have, and we'll either be the conquered or we'll be the conquerors or the conquered. That's that whole
Right.
might makes right, type of ideology, and that's why I ultimately think it was about balance. I think it's about environment. I think it's when you're in a in kind of like a theme park environment, like what America is. Maybe not for black people all the time, but it's for the most part, it's one of the safest countries to live in. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, and it's definitely one of the most affluent. Definitely has a lot of abundance. But when you have a lot of luxury, people like Zach, uh, there's no place for them here because they're too black pill. You know what I'm saying? They've seen too much darkness and they can't adjust. But you want someone like that on the battlefield. Like if someone's coming to attack the country, hey, all right, Zach, get out there.
This is your time.
Yeah, it's showtime. I think that's why I think it's about balance, and I think in many ways Ron Perlman was even kind of hinting to that. He was like, because if this was in '95, and I guess like you said, Bill Clinton was in charge, he was like, it's about dissent. There's always going to be dissent. I was talking to Caliph the other last Saturday when we met up, and he was like, man, it just seems like if he it feels like he said it feels like the country was more together back in the old. I was like, Caliph, what are you talking about? I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, yeah, things seems bad now. You got Republicans fighting against Democrats, black versus white, and all that stuff. But I'm like, I'd rather live now than in the '60s, or the '50s, or the '40s, or the '30s, or the '20s, or the 1800s. You know what I'm saying? I was like, any country you go to, there's going to be differences. There's going to be factions. There's going to be people vying for power. Any country, there's no perfect system. So, and I think that's ultimately, I think what she was trying to convey is that, you got to have some semblance of balance. You got to be able to compromise. You know what I'm saying? Which black people are horrible at doing. By the way.
Yeah, that duality that people are that duality that exists in everyone. I mean, like, the first time I ever heard of Joe Biden was when Strom Thurmond passed away, and he came down here to Charleston to give one of the eulogies. That was the first time I ever heard that man's name. I didn't know who he was, and then later on, the second time I heard about him was when Barack was running, and he had him as his VP. And I was like, wow. But it made sense why Barack didn't go choose Hillary, and chose someone like Biden, who was a Strom Thurmond. If it was up to him, we would still be in the back of the bus. He was a staunch supporter for segregation. He fought tooth and nail, and they were good friends. But
that's what cracks me up about Biden. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And him, crafting the '95 crime bill and stuff like that.
No, not just not just the '95 crime bill. Every major crime bill since the '70s, or late '70s, I should say.
Yeah. You're right, and he, and the thing of it is that black folks, they don't, they're willing to look past that.
Just like conservatives were able to look past grab him by the pussy Trump and all his bullshit.
Exactly. So that's the thing I really enjoyed about this film is speaking to the point that you're talking about, that middle of the road, that duality, and understanding that you will justify your cause and whatever it is, and whatever your cause is, and whatever you believe, and what you stand for the most part, and what would you do if your beliefs are ever in threat of being like eroded or something like that. But
I think ultimately, I think that's what it's about. I think the movie is ultimately about balance. I think that if we don't try to come to some kind of consensus, and like I said, make a compromise. And in many ways that happened in this country with the civil rights movement. Now, one could argue it didn't really work out that well for black people. We definitely got the raw end of the stick. But in many ways, that's what black people wanted. I think black people always wanted to be they either want to be white or be accepted by white people. And so in many ways, it was a success. I think black people got what they wanted. Not all black people believe that's the route we should have went.
Hold on, bro.
This is it. Go ahead, Darren.
I had to pause you on that one. You said black raw end of the stick. Pause.
Okay.
Oh God.
Nothing of value to say. But yeah. Anybody else have anything else to say about the movie?
I don't know. We might have gotten it all.
Yeah, I think we covered. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When I sat down, I was like, at first I was like, oh God, what Travis got me watching? And the more I watched, I was like, oh, this is good.
Like, oh, yeah.
Oh man, all right, okay.
Yeah, the only character that we didn't really delve deep into was Jude, and that was Cameron Diaz's character.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think we pretty much got them all.
She was the Judas. She was the one who wanted to backtrack.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That black
she
guy
even called the police at the time too.
Yeah,
she had got on the phone and he had the gun right at him and stuff like that.
Luke was not having it. Luke was like, "No, we're going all the way."
No.
Yeah.
Wait.
He said, "What are you doing?"
Right. It is not lost on me.
He didn't even. Oh, go ahead.
When it's time for the little white, well, not saying little, the young white girl.
Yeah.
When it was time to do the deed, everyone was like, "Oh, that's another look." This is another reason why you need to watch Yellow Jackets, Travis, because white women be telling on themselves.
Oh man, you ever watch Yellow Jackets yet?
He watched the first episode. Yeah,
I watched the first episode. My only thing, like I said earlier, is I watch everything through a black lens. As a black director, is that the only black character that they had, made her LGBT. I don't care for when they try to make it, black synonymous with LGBT, because I feel those are two different fights. I mean, there's some intersectionality that goes within it, but I feel that those are two separate goals that are achieving, and that was my only thing. I didn't care for. Other than that, I got one of the books I read when I was in middle school was Lord of the Flies. So I got that, them being trapped on an island and stuff like that. So and I love that book. So I really appreciated that part of it, and I like the performances of it, and how they allude that cannibalism. I just was like, wow, that's crazy. But that was my only gripe. Brian was like, "Hey, you need to stick with it and watch it." I am going to stick through it.
Now I will say that the second season is kind of going downhill a little bit. I will say.
Oh yeah.
I will say. Matter of fact, we're going to talk about that in the next podcast. We're going to talk about, how it's kind of going downhill a little bit. But yeah, I think that white women be telling on themselves sometimes, man. And I think this movie kind of showed that. They definitely do it in Yellow Jackets, but I think that in many ways, you were kind of talking about it when we first began, Travis. When Zach was like, "Don't tell me about power," white women they like to benefit from the atrocities that some of their men do, and some of the conquering and warlike traits that they have as a culture. But then when it's time for them to step up, and do something, then they want to hide behind their femininity and, oh, don't do it, she's a girl, and all, you know what I'm saying? But Luke was not having it. He was not. He was like, no, across the board. I don't care if you're black, white, if you underage or whatever. If you disagree with my ideology, you gonna drink this goddamn wine. You know what I'm saying? And look, I'll say this. I don't agree with Luke. I don't agree with Zach. I'm more of a middle road type of person. I think we should get back to some family values. I think liberals need to focus more on that. But I can respect someone who stands by their word. You know what I'm saying? You know, now it's crazy. He should go to jail. Well, like you should go say at least he did it. You know, but this back pandering, I think I say I'm gonna do something, I don't do it, and stuff like that. And I'm sorry, white women show their asses in this movie. They show their asses. They show their asses. It's like, look, man, at least Luke had his conviction. You know. Like at least he stood by what he said he was going to do. You know what I'm saying? You know, but and that's why I say in many ways he was a reflection of Zach. You know, and he was the first one to say, hey, you know what? Why don't we just bury the body and just continue with our dinner?
The first one.
No, it was the Jewish guy. Now, to be fair though, the Jewish guy was the first one to say, hey, you know, maybe Zach was right. Maybe all we do is whine and complain. But we never act.
And he dealt the killing blow.
He did, but to be fair, someone could argue that was kind of like self-defense.
Or flight.
It's a little, yeah. I don't think I don't think he had murderous intent. Like he was planning and waiting. And I'm going to, you know, he was all right. This guy's acting kind of crazy. He pulled a knife.
It was definitely a. In the heat of the moment, it wasn't like it was premeditated or he thought about it. It was kind of like, you know, kill or be killed at that.
Yeah, he talked about he's gonna rape his girlfriend and wife or whatever. I was like, God damn. Right, he was like, yeah, you know. So I'm like, So I mean, but then one could argue y'all brought the man in the house without knowing who he was. You know. So good pick up video.
Yeah, it was a great movie.
Yeah, it really got me.
I don't see how I missed this one. All right, we got sound effects.
I was about to say, yes.
Yeah, good pick, man. That was one ride. And it kept me in there. Like I wasn't bored at all. I will say that some of the critics were saying that it was what's it called, schematic, like it was obvious. But I think that was kind of the point.
Right.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, you know, it's because it's not about a whodunit or mystery. It's showing human nature and some aspect of human nature in some regard. And I think that's kind of the point. It's supposed to be obvious. I mean, even with the names, you know what I'm saying? But you know the other thing too. What was the point of Jenny? What was the point of that storyline other than the fact that it might have been Luke showing that he might just be a psychopath?
I honestly think the whole thing was just to show who Luke really was. And it gave the what do you call it? Because you know, Luke, like I said, right away, Luke was saying like, okay, yeah, let's just get rid of Zach. It could have been that was like the perfect alibi.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying for him. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I like the fact that she left it open ended. That way you can kind of play on different theories. But in my honest opinion, I honestly feel like that entire thing was the unveiling of who Luke really was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that one scene where he was talking to the sheriff was really weird. I mean,
it was strange.
Yeah.
The only difference between Zach and Luke is intellectual, so he knows how to do it. He knows how to do it. Where Zach, he's more. He doesn't understand the minutia of doing something and getting away with it. Where Luke, you know, he's a very, you know, intellectual man, so he knows how to do it.
Yeah,
and he's like
Hannibal
right, right.
But that's the other word where I think white men kind of show their asses in this, because like, all right, you got to have the black man be the psycho killer, rapist. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, child murderer. It's like, God damn, man.
Yeah.
Shit. But
and what did Luke go to school for? When he was a graduate of something.
I think he said he was gonna be a
legal psychologist.
No, that was Jude. That was Jude. I think he said he was gonna be a doctor, but he said he was gonna be a doctor of everything. So I don't know if he's just a generalist or I don't know, or if he's an actual, you know.
But I thought he was. He was going to school for history. Didn't he say?
I think so. He remember
he was like a historian.
He said he was gonna get his some kind of whatever, and he says I'm gonna be a doctor. So I don't know if that just means he's going to be a PhD or if that means he's going to actually be an actual doctor.
I think it was liberal arts. I
Yeah.
think it was liberal arts.
Yeah, because he said everything. He said everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say
But
those subtext as far as Jenny is concerned. One of the thoughts I had was, well, maybe Jenny kind of represents uh, sort of the hypocrisy of people like the undergrads and even people like Zach. It's like, okay, you say all this shit, right? And you know, what will you die for? What would you kill for? Like, well, okay, why don't you put your energy in doing something productive, like helping to find this girl? Y'all have this dinner every Sunday. You talk about politics and stuff, but like you said, you buy the mascara that it wasn't made from animal fat, you know. But you don't put any emphasis, you don't put any energy into the community, your local community that you're in. That was one thing that I thought until I saw that one scene with the sheriff and Luke. I was like, oh, okay, all right.
Yep. And that real quick.
Yeah, that was weird though. That was the weirdest scene in the movie, and it really got me. I was like, yeah, I think this dude is a murderer. I think he's a child abductor, which kind of pissed me off because I was like, damn, like the black guy got to be the most psychopathic and the child murderer. Like shit, man. Like
Yeah, like
yeah,
it's truly
Wrong
the
combo.
worst one out of all of them.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But guys,
See, that's no,
yeah,
that's why I was kind of thinking like he's the reflection of the African American people. Like I don't know, like I still kind of disagree. I think if if it was truly reversed, and then they have and African Americans have knowledge, they still have the knowledge of what happened. Then yeah, I honestly do feel like they would be just as bad as the oppressors, just because of what happened. I honestly think Luke was a direct representation of that. I mean, he pretty much channeled all his fury into. I mean, I know they had the one brother on there that was from the Nation of Islam, but I mean, outside of him, he was just like, yeah. Now that I have the power, I can kill people and do as I will. If you don't believe in what my ideology says, then yeah, I'm gonna cut you down. I'm gonna cut you down with no holds barred. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he was a reflection of the society that he was brought up in.
I see what you're saying.
But
yeah, I mean that's possible. I can see how you would make that comparison. And look, I hear your point, Avidya, about the South Africans. But one thing I realized about black people is that we believe a lot of our own bullshit about ourselves. But at the end of the day, we're humans, especially African Americans. Like we don't like to admit that. And I think what's his name? What's his name? He wrote the book Black Skin, White Mask. What's his name? Yeah, he's a French guy.
Yeah, it starts with F. I can't.
Frantz Fanon.
Sorry, Frantz Fanon.
Yeah, and he talks about how every black person has that inner white man in their psyche, and I think every black person does have that, and I think that one of the things, and some people ask, well, what's the solution? What's the solution to that? And I'm like, I think sometimes we need to listen to it. Sometimes I think we need to listen to it. I think we need to learn. We need to learn from our oppressors, or I shouldn't say like oppressors in the general sense. Our former oppressors. I don't think, in the sense of being enslaved. You know what I'm saying? I think we need to learn. I'm not saying that we need to become like them in every way, but sometimes you need to turn on your inner white man. And I think certain situations call for that. So I'm not sure. Avidya, I don't know if black people, black African Americans, I should say,
right. That's what I mean. African Americans
act in the same way as white people did. That's why I was asking earlier. Do you think that's a legitimate fear? And I don't mean like legitimate, like okay, because I don't think black people in this country are ever going to be in a position of power where we'd be able to do that to white people, or what they did to us. But if we were. And if they believe that, do you think that's a legitimate fear? Like in a sense, like okay, if they did ever come to some kind of prominence, will they do that to us? Some people would say now, even though we have that inner white man as far as brutality, we also have that inner white man as far as wanting to be accepted. So that would cancel out the brutality part. I mean, there's stories of slaves and stuff escaping and or people rising up and beating up the white oppressors, and then you got like black men and women going and helping the oppressors. What Malcolm X said something about that, right? So that's a hard one. I don't know. I would hope that we want to be just and humane, but one would argue that vengeance is a form of justice. So yeah, I don't know. I would hope that we would come together, and I've always said that I think that the only way we're going to get a fair shake is if we become as powerful as white people, because then at least you can leverage your power. You don't have to be a brute. You don't have to be a tyrant. But you can say, hey, look, okay, you got your nuclear weapons. We have our nuclear weapons. You don't mess with us, we won't mess with you. And maybe, look, it worked for North Korea. You know what I'm saying? It worked for China. It worked for Russia. It would have worked for Libya if they were smart and they actually got some nuclear weapons. But now look at Libya. They didn't have enough power to leverage, so they got invaded. To the point where Gaddafi. You know how they killed Gaddafi? You know how they killed that man? I don't know if that's what killed him. I'm assuming it's what killed him. They shoved a sword up his behind. That's how they. It's like, So when it comes to that type of thing, it's like, look, man, and this is where I go back to Zach. Some of what he was saying was the black pill truth. He just saw the world for what it was. It's not always pretty, and that a lot of I'm writing a novel. You probably like this novel that I'm writing too, Travis. Called Neptune's Reapers, and it's about like this it's a tribe in Africa that gets raided by African tribes to be sold into slavery. But it's a sacred tribe that lives up in the mountains, you know what I'm saying, and in the mountains of the Blue Mountains where the source of the Nile is, right? And only 2 people survive in the raid because they fight back, and that's the chief and the princess, but they're separated. One because she's different and she has a fantasy element to her that I'm not going to reveal in this podcast, but she gets taken off and she's like kind of like treated as like a royal oddity, right? Like a giraffe, right? And the chief, because he's this big Michael Jai White looking dude, is sold into slavery. But long story short, he escapes his bonds. He on the slave ship, he overtakes the ship. The slaves become pirates, and they find the ship that she's being toted on or whatever. It's by accident, and he realizes who it is, the princess, and he kills everybody on the ship, and he takes her and he raises her as her own. Long story short, one of the lessons he teaches her is that freedom is built on the mounds of corpses. You know what I'm saying? And I think over here we get, because this is a what do you call it, a Disney park land as far as a country, because we have so much luxury, we lose sight that of what really it took to build this place. It took slavery. It took oppression. It took the Gilded Age. It took people, fighting to only work 40 hours a week rather than 60 hours in a factory. It took black people rising up in the civil rights movement. It took death. It took blood. It took bloodshed. And I think Zach sort of represented that, even though he was a bigot. He was like, he saw the world for what it really was. And that's one of the lessons my character teaches the other character. It's like, we're pirates. We don't have the luxury of the English and their laws and all that. So we have to make our own law, And I think that's why the movie is ultimately about balance, because no one wants to go back to that more primal state. No, even conservatives, even they could be bigots. They don't even want that. They don't even want it. And that's why they'll stop. Just, you notice, no senators died in that January 6th. They were hiding under their death. No senators died because they were serious. If they were serious, that's why they take it that serious. Like, all right, yeah, this white people being white people. They protested. They did it the right way. They took it to the halls of power. You know what I'm saying? They put some fear in them. They lit a fire on them or whatever. Some of them going to jail, now. But no major political figure, got harmed. Nothing really. No one. They ain't that serious. They're not that gung ho. Now there's some of them out there who are, but I think like Ron Perlman's character said, I think that they're a minority. They have a lot of power. They have militias and stuff like that. But even this country's military wouldn't let something like that happen because they have to they're trying to maintain a certain standard of living, and if they let that happen, man, this whole thing will collapse. So that's why I think Ron Perlman's character ultimately represents more balance than some cautionary tale. I mean, maybe because of the climate, like you said, Travis, the climate that they were in, maybe it was. But that's what I took from it. It's he's more of a balanced take. He's a bastard. Yeah, he is. But if he got power, he'd probably be a moderate, like most presidents are. You know what I'm saying? But I could be wrong. All right, we're gonna end it here. But thanks, Avidya. That was really good. We haven't done a retro movie review in a long time.
Lucent Studio.